Now, though, we want to continue coverage of the shooting out of Georgia. We're joined by Anna Schecter, who's a senior producer for crime and public safety. And Anna, by now we know that at least 4 people have been killed, several others injured, and a suspect in custody. What are you learning that will help us understand what unfolded this morning?
Well, at least 9 people have been transported to local hospitals, one of them via helicopter, just to give you a sense of the scene and the chaos. There were multiple ambulances that rushed to the scene. This was all following the initial 10:23 a.m. call to local law enforcement. There are multiple agencies involved, including the FBI. Now we are looking to learn more about the profile of the shooter. That's, of course, of interest. Were there red flags? Were there mental health issues? We've spoken about this before. And, of course, we're talking about these victims, at least 4 dead. So that is technically, according to the FBI's definition, a mass shooting. So we have reached that number. And the investigation is ongoing. You saw during the presser earlier today, the sheriff was not wanting to give too many details because these numbers keep changing and he doesn't want to give incorrect information. So right now what we know is at least 4 dead, at least 9 carried away to hospitals, and we will continue to update as we get more information.
And Anna, you have been also following what people are saying online, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. Can you help us to separate fact from fiction?
Absolutely. There were earlier reports that the suspect was neutralized. Those reports are false.
Neutralized meaning killed.
Killed, exactly. Those reports were false. There is 1 suspect in custody. We don't know about accomplices. We don't know about red flags. If other people knew the individual had a gun and was planning to carry out this attack. At this time, we don't have that information, but there are also photos of an apparent shooter that are actually fake photos taken from other scenarios that are being circulated online. And we see this time and time again after a big event. People take to social media, posting conspiracy theories, posting fake photos. We know what you can do with AI. And so we're being very careful to just put out verified information.
And how interesting that we hear from the White House a discussion on misinformation as it relates to the election as we experience this mass shooting where there's misinformation about possibly the suspects and what's happened. So important to stay close to you and your team and to CBS News to learn the latest on this. But it is the beginning, generally speaking, of the school year for so many people. And we've been here too many times before. But isn't this a time of heightened risk of this type of thing, because those, if this was a student, sometimes feel bullied and see the beginning of school as some type of opportunity?
That is very possible, and that's exactly the question that investigators are asking, looking for a motive, looking for red flags. We've seen other cases where parents have been questioned about their child, and not to make any connections with this individual, but other parents have even been charged. In the Michigan case, the Michigan school shooter, the parents were actually initially charged. And so that is a tactic that prosecutors are looking at where there are red flag laws. So in this case, we don't have that information, but the points you raised are absolutely questions that investigators are asking.
And just to clarify, the White House, again, using this to push for national red flag laws. What are they exactly, and how might they help in a scenario where a student has told people or warned them that they might be planning something like this?
In most cases, the perpetrator of a mass shooting or a school shooting told another student, told another person, posted something online, whether it's a manifesto or an intent or violent rhetoric online, and had people paid attention and taken it seriously earlier, an attack could have been thwarted in many, many cases, in the majority of cases. And so this is the Biden administration effort to try to counteract that. The red flag laws would be if there's a documented mental health case, an issue, a threat, that a whole system kicks in to try to prevent this kind of tragedy being carried out. And that pertains to obtaining guns, being able to keep guns, and also support for people. It's to offer support to people who are struggling. Oftentimes, perpetrators feel isolated. They're going through a traumatic time, or their parents are, divorce, bankruptcy, stress in a family unit. And so these kinds of laws would look at that and address those red flags.
And it is worth noting that Georgia is not one of the states. The 21 states have adopted some level of red flag laws.
Georgia is not one of them.
Their neighbor, Florida, however, does have those red flag laws. And as you were talking about this, I thought it was an interesting point, too, that this was also to help protect the individual as well. In Indiana, for example, after they instituted this red flag law, there was a 7.5% drop in gun suicide rates. And so for lots of reasons, there are Republican and Democrats who are proponents of these red flag laws, but they do not. That doesn't exist currently in Georgia. What are some of the other aspects of trying to make progress? Because as you mentioned, the idea of prosecutors now going after parents who have provided guns.
That's one tactic.
That's one thing. These red flag laws, we heard Karine Jean-Pierre lay out 4 different items that the White House was interested in seeing lawmakers do. But we know that more and more the progress is actually not happening at a federal level. It's happening at a state level. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. But going back to the federal level, just yesterday we heard a presser where federal officials are instituting gun trafficking laws to prevent guns to be transported over state lines. And they actually filed charges against 3 gun retailers who had engaged in this practice of transporting guns across state lands. You can't do that because state by state, that's part of the problem. There's a patchwork of laws. And so some states, even a state like Illinois, has pretty strict gun laws, but then Indiana has loose gun laws. In fact, a majority of the guns used in Chicago gun crime, deadly shootings, come from outside of Illinois, many from Indiana, some from Missouri. So state by state, states are increasingly instituting preventative laws, but there are outliers also that just want to make it as easy as possible for people who enjoy guns for sport to not have any restrictions placed on them. And that's really a problem because the gun lobby can be very strong. If you look at Oklahoma, Ohio, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, it's tough.
But it's a good note that things can be done. Laws have been passed, but it's the patchwork of states that makes it a challenge, which then puts the pressure on the federal government to do more. Anna Schecter, thanks so much. We know we'll have more of your reporting on CBS platforms throughout the day. Thank you.
And our coverage of this story will continue right here on CBS News 24/7. After a short break, we're going to speak with a former top police official for a look at the early stages of this investigation.